It might be a bold statement, but I think it's fair to say authenticity is the foundation of lasting, fulfilling recovery. In this episode, we explore what authenticity means. More than just be yourself, but understanding what it means to be vulnerable, take off the masks, accepting yourself just as you are, and to truly fall in love with yourself. Authenticity means knowing and understanding your values and choosing to live by them, even when it's hard. It means being honest and finding true freedom. Stay tuned as we dive into a conversation with three guests who have all found very different versions of what authenticity means to them.
Welcome to Through the Glass Recovery podcast, where we believe that connection is the opposite of addiction, vulnerability is the antidote to shame, and that recovery isn't just rewarding, but it's also a lot of fun. We're your hosts, Julie and Steve. Listen as we get together with friends to shed light on the hard things, talk about the other side of addiction, and how we create a life so full there's no space left for alcohol.
If you haven't yet, come check out one of our Zoom support groups on Monday nights. They're just like what you hear in our podcast episodes. You'll find yourself in a small group of 4 or 5 people chatting about the topic for about half an hour. It can be a great way to connect with others, make some new friends, and find some new perspective to help create momentum in your recovery. You can visit our website for all the details at throughtheglassrecovery.com.
All right, welcome everybody. So nice to see some new faces on our episode today. So this is episode 92. We're getting closer and closer to 100. And yeah, we've got Chelsea, Gary, and Eliza with us today. So we're going to do introductions. I'm going to let Eliza go first because she's been here and she kind of knows what's up. So how are you, Eliza?
I'm good. Thank you again for having me and for having me as many times as you guys have put up with me. I have been in recovery now almost 5 years, and it just kind of gets better and better. I know people say that all the time. It can be a slow start to things. I feel like, you don't always notice it getting better. And then you kind of look back and you're like, wow, this is the life I've built. My husband is also in recovery. We got sober when I got pregnant, which I've been to like 9 treatment programs and nothing kind of worked until there was something I was so afraid of losing, which was, my first child. So that definitely changed things. And now I actually work in the recovery space, adjacent to the recovery space. I don't work for a treatment center, but I work for a tech platform that uses the biometrics from off-the-shelf wearables like Fitbit, Apple Watch, Garmin, to basically better understand what's going on physiologically with clients. It's sleep really disrupted, is a low heart rate variability going on, and that can be massively predictive, not just of relapse, but of behavioral health conditions as well, that then can lead to relapse or can lead to depression and anxiety, not getting off the couch for a week, doom scrolling on your phone till 4 a.m. every night, just helping people live better lives. And we partner with treatment centers. So it's been a good life. I've gotten really into exercise and kind of the physiological elements of things lately, running a lot, doing a lot of marathons and half marathons, and kind of keeping busy that way. And I also have 2 children that I've had in recovery.
Really cool. I think the first time you were on the podcast was like a year ago. And so every time we get to hang out with you, we just get to hear like the new stuff that's going on. I think, did I see on Facebook you just did a half marathon like yesterday?
Like 2 days ago.
2 days ago. So cool. Good for you.
I really traveling a lot. Getting out to meet clients out. Oh my God, we were young when we first started talking as a company, and now we have like 40 clients, and we just launched with like the Guest House, which is incredibly reputable facility, and have like 40 clients. Maybe moving forward with like the High Watches and Alinas of the world, which are obviously these massive kind of storied facilities that have been around 100 years, and just amazing. So good stuff.
Awesome.
Really, really cool. Well, it's great to see all of your growth, both professionally and personally. It's always a pleasure to have you. Next, I'm going to ask Gary to introduce himself. How are you?
I'm well, Julie and Steve and Eliza and Chelsea. Thanks for having me. Good to be here. I appreciate the invite. Seems like some really cool stuff you guys are doing here. Uh, I have actually my sober day. Things are a little hectic today, and I actually woke up and I didn't realize that I woke up today. I'm 18 years sober today.
Today.
Yeah, today, May 13th.
Amazing.
Oh, what? That's
I got my
awesome.
chip. Yeah, I got my chip. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, it's
My
You know,
God,
people
that's
make-
amazing.
yeah, it's wild. It's wild. I woke up, my phone, I had a bunch of text messages like, oh my God, there's too much going on. I need to slow down. I actually forgot that today is my anniversary, which is just wild to think of. But yeah, and like many of us, if you knew me 18 years ago, I think I would have been voted the last person that you could have voted for, would have thought would find sobriety. But what we do, we find sobriety. We see these amazing miracles, these transformations occur, right? And I'm one of them. My life's a complete 180 from where it was 18 plus years ago. And I hear all these sayings and things like property of my sobriety. Like I'm one of those, like I owe everything to my sobriety, and I do really try to put it first. I love what Eliza said. She tried a lot of things with me too. I was in and out for 4 years. I went to rehab in 2002. I'm in New York. I'm on Long Island right now. I was a few blocks north of the Trade Center when it went down. And in 2001 and 2002, I found myself in a rehab, and my sobriety date's 2006. So I was in and out for 4 years, and that is a rough place to be. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But Eliza had said she found something that she was so scared of losing. And so I can relate to that. I have a 10-year-old and a 9-year-old myself, and they've never seen their dad drunk. And I say it a lot. It's not even seeing me drunk. Like if I had a glass or a sip of alcohol, my complete aura and energy would just pierce through, and they would see it and they would feel it. And it would be really soon before, I scared them. I don't know if I can curse on here, but if I scared them, but yeah, it's just, everything to it. It's been an amazing journey. I'm going to be 50 years old in a couple months, I guess, or a few weeks in July. And I'm a big pounder of the table that my best years are ahead of me. I don't know if that's like if it's, what do you call it? I'm drawing a blank, midlife crisis. I like cross out crisis, and it's a midlife epiphany. We're going to make this the next 25 is going to be great. And now I started a podcast myself last July, almost a year going on my podcast. It's called the Begin Again Podcast. It's been incredible. The best part, I say this all the time, if you listened in, is the incredible people I've been able to meet, and I get opportunities to come on a show like this and to meet the four of you. And I'm super grateful for today, and I'm super grateful for all of it. So thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. So Brene Brown calls that midlife crisis. She calls it the midlife unraveling.
Yes.
And I love that because it's her version of, you find midlife and you're like, I can't be inauthentic anymore. I have to be authentic, which is, exactly what we're talking about today. So just made me smile.
Thank you.
I love how you've thrown Brene Brown in here already.
Oh yeah, you knew it was going to happen.
Oh yeah,
we're talking about authenticity.
Just,
like,
yeah.
That's right.
Right? Cool. Well, it's really nice to meet you, Gary. We're really happy to have you. And last but certainly not least is Chelsea.
Hi, Chelsea Latera. I'm 48 years old. I'm 20 minutes outside of Providence, Rhode Island. I've been sober for almost 9 years in July. I started Mountain Pathways Recovery back in Colorado. That's where I'm originally from. I moved to Providence, Rhode Island with my husband. We kind of transplanted here, wanted to change, wanted to come to the water. So we came over this way. But when I got sober, I wanted to kind of get into the community of recovery. So I started, went into the 200-hour teacher training for yoga and did some training with meditation. And so I did those trainings and went into the jail system and did some volunteering for that, and kind of started up Mountain Pathways Recovery, which now is Lighthouse Recovery over here, because I needed to change the name because we're not in the mountains anymore to make it kind of, relatable. And yeah, but now I work for, I'm a certified recovery advisor for a in-home addiction treatment company here in Rhode Island. So we go into homes and help people struggling with addiction, and it stems from a lot of, mental health and trauma and PTSD also. Addiction comes from somewhere. So we do that. And so, yeah, I'm full-time with that company. And I also have a Facebook page and group, also Lighthouse. So you can find me on there.
Yeah, we love your Facebook group and everything you're doing on social media. That's how we actually found Chelsea. So just so our listeners know, we're going to have links in the show notes for everything these guys are doing in the recovery space. Make sure you check those out and follow those links and catch up with what they're doing. So yeah, really nice to have you, Chelsea. Really nice to meet you in person. Well, quote unquote, in person, the virtual Zoom version of that. Yeah, so for our topic, one thing that gets touched on in nearly every episode is authenticity. It seems like authenticity plays a role in every aspect of recovery, from discovering who you even are after you put down the bottle, to learning to stand up for yourself and find meaning in your life. Being authentic always seems to be a core piece. So let's talk about that. What is authenticity to you? How does it show up in your life? And most importantly, how does it affect your recovery? This is my absolute favorite topic in the whole world. So yeah, I'm really happy to have you guys here and happy to chat about it.
I think I've ever seen you this happy on one of these recordings. Like, it's such a hard act to follow because it's such a broad and deep topic that's challenging in so many ways. And I think that, like, what comes to mind for me is more will be revealed, right? Like, you continue to kind of chip away at that. What authenticity meant to me, 4 years ago is not necessarily what it means to me now. And as recovery has kind of progressed for me, the one thing that I can think about is it's not so much like not lying or being honest about what's going on in my life. It's how do we show up to other people? I've tried to make a really big, there's things that women in recovery don't really talk about a lot. One is using when not pregnant, which I did to 6 months. I'm very lucky that my first child didn't have more issues than showed up, frankly. And then another major one is, like most women that have used substances, particularly like drugs, have gotten into sex work to some extent. Like, that's how women support habits. And that tends to be one of the things also that women don't really talk about. And so, as I've progressed in recovery, like, there's not a whole lot that I don't talk about my story pretty openly, pretty publicly, frankly. And it's because the more that I share with people, and there's a big difference between like the way that I try to go about this, being honest about my story, and like war stories, because there's a big difference there, big difference. But being really honest and open about like, this is who I am, and it's only helped me. I've never had anybody run out of the room screaming. I'll say that. It's helped me really connect with people. Not necessarily about the details of it, because it doesn't really matter, right? But it's like the experience, the shared experience of the shame and the guilt. Somebody else may not have used pregnant, but they've certainly done things that around their children that they're not happy about. They've done things to their family they're not happy about. They've ruined relationships in some way, that type of thing. So really showing up, authentically and being really transparent. And again, you also walk a fine line. I'm curious to see what other people think about this, but you walk a fine line between, really showing up in an honest way and doing no harm, right? So when people ask you, what do you think about this? How do you feel about this? The most like easy example is, how does this look? Well, like, that's an easy thing to say without really hurting. But should I go into this career? Should I leave this person? Those are much more difficult things. And so that's something that really I've tried to like, am I okay with the answer that I provide from an honesty standpoint? while still being kind and helpful. And then the last thing that comes to mind, and then I'm going to stop talking, is when I don't live in a way that is authentic now, it's not worth it for me, because I have this loop in my head that's like, when's the other shoe going to drop? When am I going to get found out? When is something going to happen? Like, anytime that I've been dishonest about anything, it feels so bad that, like, I don't even know. It just feels bad. And then I worry about it, and I get stressed about it. I think about it, or separate before bed about it. It just isn't worth it. So, but that took a while. That took a couple of years of recovery to kind of get to that point, because I lived dishonestly for so long that was the norm. And so now we have a new norm finally, but it took a couple of years to get there.
And it's weird because that same feeling happens when you flip it from the dishonesty to honesty, right? Like, before, lying felt so normal that when I was honest, I had that feeling that being honest was wrong because I was afraid of it. And then the other way around now, that feeling you're talking about, when I'm essentially, I call that self-abandonment. Like, I'm abandoning myself for, what I think, what I feel, my values, or whatever that may be, that it feels off and it feels wrong.
Yeah, it's like, when's the other shit gonna drop? It's like really like that feeling of like, oh, is it gonna be today? It's like that inner kind of chest feeling, that tightness, that like angsty. I mean, it feels like the worst anxiety.
Yeah.
That type of feeling. And I had never thought of it the way that you just put it, but you're totally right, because in using days, it's like, well, if I'm authentic and I'm honest, I'm not going to get my needs met. And in this way, it's like, if I'm not honest now and I'm dishonest, then what needs are not getting met. So it's all about, like, I mean, it's human condition, all about being survival, but we've just learned a different way to live.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the reason I get so excited about this topic is because for me, and you touched on this, Eliza, the shame piece, right? I lived my whole life drowning in shame, like from the time I was a teenager until the time I discovered recovery and doing the work. And for me, authenticity and shame are tied together. As soon as I could show up authentically and actually let people see all the flaws, because God knows there are a lot of them, then the shame started lifting. And then once the shame starts lifting, then the self-worth starts growing. And I mean, from the time I was 13 years old, I hated who I was. I absolutely hated myself. And I never felt good enough, and I never felt lovable. And all of that I carried with me. So, of course, those are the feelings that eventually led to drinking constantly, right? But once I found spaces where I could show up and be authentic and acknowledge that I have some really good parts and some really bad parts, and all of that doesn't mean I'm not lovable, then I could start to really like who I am, which was a massive shift for me. Like, that was life-changing to move into, I hate myself, to I actually kind of love who I am now. And all of that is based in authenticity and showing up, not hiding behind every mask that there was, trying to prove to the world how perfect I was, but just being real. And to me, that is like the ultimate freedom. So I get excited when we talk about authenticity, because that feeling of freedom that I experienced, that's something that I want every person in the world to feel capable of experiencing. And it's so multifaceted, and there's so many variables and parts and pieces that all go into it. But if you can start picking them out one by one, then you just like life becomes so completely different, and it just feels like it's like a breath of fresh air. And that's why I love talking about authenticity.
Yeah, it's a great topic. I don't know if I can jump in here, but when you sent us the email and the topic was authenticity, I was like, oh wow, this is going to be interesting. I like this. It's not your typical. At least I haven't had that as a topic in a while. But for me, both of you touched upon so much stuff that I can relate to totally. I love the freedom that you just talked about, right? And I feel like it's just about being myself, right? And being real. And it took me so long to even be able to say those words. I say a lot that, I came in, I was an adult in stature, if you saw me, but I was a scared little child inside. when I came in 18 years ago, and I didn't know it. Like, I acted and I thought that I wasn't afraid of anything. And if you saw me, that's kind of how I was. Like, I was, pedal to the metal type of guy. But it wasn't until I started doing the work on myself and started writing some stuff down on paper and look at my own side of the street that I realized, the word fear, I could put fear next to everything, every aspect of my life almost. And it was really eye-opening to me, because here I was with this facade, even though I, honest to God, wasn't really aware of it, but I had this facade that I wasn't afraid of anything. I mean, I got in a lot of trouble too. I got in a lot of scraps. I've got, arrested, so you could, if you looked at it, you'd probably say, wow, yeah, he's got guts or whatever, balls or whatever, excuse me. But, that's not what was really going on. And you start doing the work on myself, right? And, you talk about being vulnerable and sharing your story. And, now I'm on this, it's a big number or whatever, a milestone. But when you have the moments of people, I've had recently, even since I started the podcast, people reaching out to me from my past, that, like, hey man, I know I haven't seen you in a long time. Can we meet for a coffee or something? And we sit down and you have an honest conversation. You have an idea what they're bringing you to breakfast or coffee for, but when you have a conversation with people that they're struggling and they're coming to me for my insight or just to have a conversation, that's where I feel my real, true, authentic self comes out, right? Like, I'm just telling my story and telling what happened and what I put myself through and where I am now and how life is today. And, part of the podcast, and, there's this term, recover out loud. I didn't even know what that term was when I got here, but now it's like a movement. And some of the most amazing people are in this, if you want to call it a movement, recover out loud. I wasn't even on social media. I had a Facebook account. I'd never, play with it. I had an Instagram account. I had a few pictures when I first did it, 8 years ago or whatever. Now I'm telling my wife, hey, by the way, she's heard every crazy idea. I'm coming up listen, I think I'm going to start a podcast, and here's what it is. I wrote out this really amazing, mission statement for it. And she's like, stop everything, all your other crazy ideas, stop and drop them all. This is you. Go in, go do it. And, authentic, right? Authentic is just being real. But, Julie and Eliza, you both touched upon it. It wasn't always able to say, Gary, just go be yourself. I wasn't always able to say that, and it's really, it's a gift, and I'm grateful that I'm able to say that. I'm like all of us, I still have tons of fear. I can have fear coming on here. I hope Steve and Chelsea and Eliza, I hope they like me. I hope I do okay. And then it's just, I say a quick prayer, right? It's just like, Gary, slow down, say a prayer, God, I'll give you some words. Maybe we can help someone today, and just be yourself. I'll do it if I'm walking into a business meeting. Same thing. Oh man, what are you get all anxious up, and then it's right 5 minutes before it starts, it's like, Gary, just go be yourself, man. And I wasn't always like that. 18 years ago, Gary, just be yourself was, watch out, get out of the way, and I had such a chip on my shoulder, and the chip on my shoulder will show up sometimes, but I just such a, cynical view on life. And it's completely flipped around. I said at the beginning, my life's complete 180 from where it was. And it's also my thoughts, like you said, I'm going to be 50, and, I have more dreams and goals now than I ever have. And I have this yearning to learn, and given this other gift, Gary, you don't know everything. I used to think I knew everything, and I was at the tunnel vision just that way. And so many things I learned in sobriety I would have been wrong about. So now, I come at things and most things with that point of view, even big topics, right? And especially not to get into politics, the political landscape is so polarizing, right? But it's just hey, Gary, you got to look at things at both sides, put yourself in their shoes, just have an open mind. But this is a language I didn't talk about. I didn't speak like this, 18 years ago. And, it's so much better and so much more freeing this way. You guys talked about anxiety though, and we're getting ready to move. We're moving down to Florida. It's a big move. And there's so much, and I'm playing turn it over to God, nonstop 24/7. And I say it all the time, you can't live in fear and faith at the same time. Right. So I'm constantly turning it over, selling a house or looking at other ones. These are great, problems or, whatever worries to have. But again, I go back, I wasn't able to do these things either. Like I was nowhere. I was going nowhere. I was on such a complete different path than I am today. And so authenticity, also you talked about it, when you girls were talking about anxiety, being anxious, like when the phone rang, even like your first year or two in sobriety, when the phone rang, I had this it was like habit, like this awful anxiety because I couldn't answer the phone. I didn't know who it was, who was calling, what did I do last night, who was looking for me, and it took me so long. And now, this might sound silly, I say this a lot though, every time the phone rings, I have a very, very quick jolt of like gratitude. Like I can just answer this phone right off the first ring. Like, because I didn't used to be able to do that. Things that normal human beings take for granted because, they don't have to worry about, answering the phone. But, my path, it was bad. So when the phone rings, I'm able to pick it up really quick. And I do. I sincerely, honest to God, have a quick little jolt of like, oh man, it feels, and that's beautiful too, right? Like even 18 years in to still have that, gratitude. I say it a lot too. I don't mean to ramble on, but like, don't forget where you came from either. And especially in a day like today, like I need to remember where I was, I have a built-in forgetter like a lot of people also, but I need to remember where I was and the path that I was on and where I am today, just be full of gratitude for it. But, authentic is sharing this out loud, right? Is just being honest and being real and, and again, just being myself, which wasn't always good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the little things, right? The little things that we notice, the little changes to be grateful for. I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Chelsea, what are your thoughts?
Go for it.
I see you like smiling and nodding over there.
Yeah.
So I want to hear what's going through your head.
Oh my gosh, like so many good things I can relate to and just so lots of good things said. And yeah, just being authentic. And, when I came in recovery, it was very different from what I was, before when I was using and in active use. And, and before that, before addiction too, before I was even hiding behind a mask with addiction, just because growing up, I felt like I had to pretend I was something that I was not. I was always a people pleaser. I felt like I was always trying to, please people, to kind of be their friend and, be good. And I think that came from and stemmed from my family. And with my addiction, it was just, I flooded. It was just flooded with addiction. At the end, I was just the party girl, and I ended up just losing everything. Like who was I? Who was Chelsea? And I was just so lost at the end. And when I got sober, I had to find everything again. And now it's like, who am I? And, I had to come back. And now it's like, I like soft clothes and I like yoga and I like meditation and I like the simple things in life and all these things, and I want to do better and I want to help people and serve people. And the authentic self is, I use my words now instead of, yelling at people. I used to be such an angry person, especially when I was drinking, right? Yeah. So I've found my words again. I use my words correctly. And I kind of, help people kind of do that too in the work that I do and, kind of guide people in that way. And I love it. I love everything about like what I do. And I love being in the recovery realm like that. And I've been in it for about 6 years now, and it's been great. I've really found my path and way, and not many people can kind of stay in the recovery area and work. It's been hard, but I feel like I really, really love it. You just have to really nurture yourself and definitely do a lot of self-care and know your authentic self in that aspect and really nurture yourself, keep your cup full, and really be aware of what is going on with your body, and really listen to yourself, and when you need some loving, and just fill your cup up. So
Talk about like authenticity as like it's almost a rediscovery. Because if you were to ask me right in the beginning who I was, I probably would have told you where I worked, what I did for a living, and the stuff that I had, because I really didn't know the who part. A father of 2 kids, and that was it. Like, who was Steve? Part of authenticity is figuring that part out. And that's probably one of the hardest parts. It's also scary. My anger was driven by fear. My people pleasing was driven by fear. And my meekness, right? When I drank, a lot of the times I didn't get angry. I got more and more silent. I went more and more internal. So I just let things be, let things happen, whatever it was. And I became more of a turtle than I did, have this exterior chip on my shoulder. It would come and go. But how did I figure that one out? Like, the work, I guess, is part of that, figuring that one out. But how? I had to ask myself a lot of questions, and I had to try things, even the things that I thought I liked, all over again, just to see if they were actually something that I liked. Or was I doing this because other people thought that I liked it, or because other people thought it was good for me, or because other people thought I was good at it, and that was just something I did? And was I getting that fulfillment from it because other people were saying, yeah, good job, Steve? Or was I getting it from a place that came from my heart, that was real to me? And I can give from that place now and not expect anything in return. And that's how I know it's authentic. And that's how I know it's real.
So all 3 of you, Chelsea and Steve and Gary, you guys have touched on this. One of the things that I hear people say, one of the things I hear clients say a lot is like, I don't know my purpose. They feel like they're floating through life without an actual true purpose. And there's so many books and articles and quizzes and everything online, like how to find your purpose in life. And like, there's no easy answer to it, right? But it's all based in authenticity. I swear every person I know who feels like they're truly living it aligned with their purpose in this world started from a place of authenticity and just started moving through life in the most authentic way they knew, honoring themselves to the very best of their ability, day by day, moment by moment, whatever that is. And it's like their purpose falls into their lap and they're not expecting it. Like, Chelsea, I'm sure, when you were in high school, you never planned on being in the recovery space, that being where you work and find your fulfillment. Or Gary, you mentioned, like, you never thought about, podcasting until you did. And your wife was like, yes, this is what you were meant to do. But I swear that's where our purpose comes from, is just figuring out who we are, what's important to us, what our values are, what feels right, what feels wrong, really trying to live aligned with that, even when it's hard, even when it goes against what, the norm thinks we should be doing. And then I swear that our purpose just falls into our lap one day and we're like, oh, here it is. And then at that point, then it's about having the courage to pick it up and run with it. But that's kind of what I'm hearing all of you guys talk about is, the more authentic you are, the more authentically you live, the more fulfilling life gets, right?
Absolutely. I love fulfilling life. I've heard this just the other day. Someone was saying how full their life is. And if you looked at them, they're talking about coaching their son's baseball team, going to IHOP afterwards. Like Juliet said, it's a collection of all the little stuff, right? Like, and that's living fulfillfully. Is that a word? Living fully, I would say, sorry. Whereas, keep saying 18 years ago, I had different views on what a fulfilling life was, right? Completely different. And, was it authentic to me at the time? I don't know. I think I was trying to be someone I wasn't for a long, long time, all roads, and these are things I learned as well in recovery. I didn't realize how down I was on myself. I didn't realize how low self-esteem I had of myself. All roads led to I suck. I was never enough. I was never good enough. Not good looking enough. I definitely didn't have enough money. Wasn't a good enough athlete. Everything was just, I was not enough. And again, we go on this journey of self-discovery and sobriety, and you start working on yourself, and you start saying, you're okay. Look where you came from too. Like, you're doing okay today. We're allowed to say that to ourselves sometimes. And I think it's important. Like, you know what? Chelsea, Eliza, you're doing okay today. Gary, you're doing okay today. It's all right to give yourself a little proverbial pat on the back, I think, from time to time. And, this whole notion of, recover out loud, it's almost a celebration sometimes of everything that we've come through, right? And I think that's authentic, and I venture to say, without the clicks and stuff, that in our space, if you will, recover out loud, or recovery space, it was brought up to me too, like the most amazing people, you meet the most amazing people in recovery, and it's because we've all been through it. We're all kind of phoenixes in our own way. We've all crashed and burned, and we've came out of it, right? And now all of us, we just met for the first time with 5 of us. I know that if I see you down the street that someone needs help, that in our space, that you generally just want that person to get better. Right? It's not like what's in it for me in the recovery space, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. There's businesses and there's bad people everywhere. But for the most part, full of a bunch of authentic people that just want what's better for everyone else to get better, especially, someone, a newcomer, just walks into the room, right? Like they're the most important person in the room. And it's funny, again, I'll say this also, the term sober curious. Like when I got here, I was like, I don't know about that term, sober curious. Like, I don't think I fall under that umbrella. But now as I meet more people on sober curious, they might be the most important people in the room too, because you know what? Maybe they don't have to go through what I went through to get here. Maybe they could skip a whole block of time and a whole block of trouble to get here. Like, I don't care how you get here. If you need to get here, like, there's always a seat for you. And again, that's authentic, right? It's a true yearning. It's a true love for someone to get well, and someone to live a better life, right? And what's better than, again, the mantra, I'll say again, the mantra for me with the podcast was help one person today, and if I can help one person, that's great. And if the 5 of us help one person, that's great. And if those 5 people help one person, like, man, isn't that beautiful? It's a beautiful thing, and that's real, and, Chelsea, you talked about self-care, and, I didn't realize I like to hike. I like to be in the middle of the woods all by myself. That's like my safe place. Like, that's my meditation. I love to meditate too, but hiking to me could be a form of meditation, and I'm just alone and just nobody else. I used to listen to music. Now I don't even want to listen to music, but it's like my meditative. All my best ideas come. I know they're endorphins come, and I have a nice little sweat, but sometimes you're see some nice views, and it's just me alone for a couple hours in the woods or mountains, or I'm all alone, so it's not real mountains, but when I do travel, I get to some spots. But again, that's authentic Gary, right? Like that's some of the good stuff. And this is stuff I didn't know about myself. So I'm still on the learning curve. And that's, like I said before, I just want to keep learning.
It's all an adventure. You get to rediscover what you like, what works, what feels good, what makes you feel like you're in the right place. And I love the hiking thing. That's a great example of that. And I think once we get sober, it's almost a job to get out there and try all the things. Anything we even sort of think we might be interested in, because there's a lot of space to fill, and there's a lot of stuff that we have to let go of, not just the alcohol, but the hobby, like the people and the things we used to do and all of that. A lot of that's got to go away. So I think that's a big part of the authenticity piece, is just the adventure of what do I actually enjoy doing? What's going to make me feel better and make me feel good?
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Totally agree.
Yeah,
Go for it.
Go ahead, Chelsea.
Yeah, I definitely had to start over and, figure out what made me feel good. And, before it was snowboarding, and all mountain things. You know, I was like a heavy hiker and a snowboarder and a mountain biker and all the extreme sports. And now I'm more mellow and you know, very casual, Zen. Like that's what my body craves now, you know, being sober and like halfway, you know, like the 4.5 years into the 9 years later, it's like now in Rhode Island, I'm by the water and I'm very zened out. That's what my body's craving. So yeah, I'm going with it. So definitely yoga and meditation and walks by the water. And, you know, I think being in recovery also, you know, you have to listen to your recovery path too. It's like, I feel like your recovery path can definitely change a little bit. So you have to kind of listen to that, and you have to really be mindful of that too. You don't want to get stagnant with that, and you got to kind of change it up a little bit so you don't have any reoccurrences. So I've been definitely, you know, doing a lot of different sports and doing some outside gardening and stuff like that. So it's been really, really lovely. So it's been nice.
It's like opening up the box of life. Allowing yourself to just wander, and not just wander through the woods or wander on the water or whatever that is. Wander through the list of hobbies, wander through the list of places to visit, wander through the list of people to meet, wander through the list of all of those things, and taking pieces from those experiences and figuring out what works for me and what doesn't. And when it doesn't, I have to be okay with leaving that behind. And that gets really, really difficult. Like that gets hard. I'm attached to that thing. I'm attached to that persona. I'm attached to that mask. I'm attached to those people. And I create my own suffering because I'm attached to those people because that's where I was and that's what I know. But I need to let go of that so I can go on to the next thing that I know is good for me. And it's authenticity is just it's an amazing thing because it's hard.
We talk a lot about undoing underlying subconscious beliefs too, right? So, and Steve, you'll resonate with this one, but there are people in our lives, there have been people in our lives since we were little that make us think, oh, people like me don't do that. That's not an option for me. And you know, whatever that is, like, and then we just believe it and we move forward. And I think authenticity, a big part of that is undoing all those beliefs we carry about ourselves. You know, people like us don't go to college, or, you know, people like you don't get into hiking, or, you know, we don't do big things like that, whatever it is. And so we just accept it. We're like, okay, well, that's just not my thing. But we limit ourselves so much when we hold on to those. And there's so many of them we don't even know, right? So many different things that we believe about ourselves that, like, that's part of the authenticity, I guess. You get to uncover it and then give yourself the chance to try it. And I think that's, I don't know, it's another really special part of this.
I totally get that. I told myself for the longest time that I hated kids. I don't hate kids. I just thought that wasn't going to happen for me. Like, so I was like, it was my way of making myself okay if, because of my addiction and using, that family and marriage and children didn't happen. That was my way of like protecting myself and being like, well, I don't want that anyway, because then it's my choice. It's not something that I did. It's not something that I was an active participant in. It's like, it was my choice. I didn't want to anyway. So it was fine if that passed me by. It was like preparing myself for that. Thank goodness that I kind of got my act together when I did. Like, there's been so many, like, I've related so much to what you were saying about beliefs about ourselves that, like, well, like I was an athlete. I played hockey on the US team and at Brown, and I live in Massachusetts normally, Chelsea. So when you said Rhode Island, I'm right on the water. I'm like, I think I know where you are. And so I'm in like Dover, Sherburne area in Massachusetts now. But because I played ice hockey, I always was told, oh, you're an athlete, so you're not creative. You don't, like, there was a corollary was you're good at sports, so you don't do this. You don't do art. You don't do this. You're not creative, blah, blah, blah. And so that was just like something that I believed. And then I was at Borden Cottage for treatment, one of my many treatments, and they kind of like challenged me on that. And were like, well, why do you think like this is something we're encouraging you to do? Like, you should try to do this. And I'm like, well, I'm not good at that. I don't like it. And they're like, well, what made you think that you're not good at it? Like, what makes you think you don't like it? When was the last time you tried? I think I was like, I don't know, like when I was like 13. They're like, okay, you're gonna sit and do this. Like that's insane. You're like 34 years old. That is insane. Yeah. And it kind of got me questioning some of those things. And I didn't think of the thing about thinking that I hated kids until recently. But it's just my life would have been so much more narrow if I had not only found recovery but also questioned kind of like what do I really, what. And Whitney was a little bit of like an oops, but thank God, like it wasn't like a planned thing. But like, thank God, right? The universe has plans for us that we don't. And I there's always a choice, right? And I made, I think, the choice that worked well for me in that regard. And my life expanded exponentially because of it.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like some of us we're talking about chasing peace of mind. I'll speak for myself, like this finding this calm, this contentment within myself that, let me find that place. Sometimes it's certainly a struggle, right? When I take my will back, but as everyone was talking, I was thinking about how my prayers have changed, like since when I first came in. In fact, some of them are the same. Like it was brought to me early on, Gary, pray tomorrow that you don't drink. Just try that in the morning. And I got on my knees and I said a prayer. I said, God, please give me the gift of sobriety today. I didn't drink that day. And I went, holy cow, that work. And so at the end of every night, I said, God, thank you for giving me the gift of sobriety. And so those are so part of my prayers. But, then my prayers, God, help me get this. If I get this, then, everything will be okay. Or God, help me do that. And the truth is my prayers today, God, show me the way, what you will for me. Keep my eyes open to what you want me to, how to serve you and serve our people. It's just such a complete shift, right? It's like taking me out of the equation, but asking to have my eyes open when things do appear, or opportunities, or could be something easy and something simple, opening the door for someone, helping someone with a stroller down the subway, just small little stuff. What makes you feel good too, right? It's like, well, there's a lot of other people walking by. Why don't you be the one to help this woman? There's this quote, and it's I'm going to botch it, but it's like, if you do something for someone and more than two people know about it, meaning you're that person, that you may have done it for the wrong reasons. And it's sort of like, how I act when I'm alone, when it's just me, like that's my authentic self. When there's no one, I'm not impressing someone. I'm not holding the door because I'll impress somebody, you know what I mean? Or it's just me and my higher power, because he's always watching. And like, that's where I'm at, my true authentic self, I think, and yeah, we get in the middle of life and things happen and you're talking around people and, being human beings, but when it's just me and I'm walking down the street or I'm on a hike or whatever it may be, and it's how you act then when you're all alone, I think is when, I could comfortably say that's probably my most authentic self at those moments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said.
Yeah, I agree. It's my prayers alone with God, and when I'm on my yoga mat by myself, and definitely it's when I'm balanced and definitely grounded, and yeah, I'm able to connect the most when I'm on my mat and with my prayers to my higher power, and I just feel the most comfortable, and I just feel the most safe, for sure, and the most authentic, because then I don't have to wear the mask, and I don't have to have the anxiousness, and I can just close my eyes, and yeah, it's just the most calming experience. It's definitely a beautiful thing, and I learned so much, coming into recovery, with my prayers, and, definitely I heard a lot from Gary, and I definitely agree with what he said too, is about connection with your higher power and just really trusting, and your prayers have shifted and all that. So yeah, just finding peace and all that with God. And yeah, thank you.
One of the most amazing things, I'm going to wrap this up now too, and one of the most amazing things about the whole recovery space is how we all recover is different, and it's authentic to all of us, whether it's in prayer or in the universe or a higher power or really anything. And that's one of the things I love about it. And I love sharing everyone's different style of recovery too, because we can all take pieces from each other and use what works and use what doesn't and figure it all out. And it's wonderful. So this whole topic of authenticity, when we began here and then where we are now, because there's so many layers to authenticity, from the shame to trying to just being real. I'm going to go back to trying, because that's where it all starts, right? Just giving something a try, even if it's foreign to us. So I want to say thank you, Gary, thank you, Chelsea, and thank you, Eliza, for spending this time with us and sharing your thoughts. It's amazing. I love it. Gary, happy 18 years.
Yeah.
Congratulations, man.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats.
That's just serendipitous timing for this.
Yeah.
So
That's
interesting.
amazing.
I was like, oh, I'm gonna be on the podcast. This is good timing.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Thank you
Oh,
for the
thank you.
opportunity. This is
Yes.
fun.
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys. Thanks so much to our listeners for joining us today. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow Through the Glass Recovery podcast so you don't miss any future episodes.